Did we always spell Norhaven with an X? Marshall squinted at the backlit projector like someone had swapped his LinkedIn with his baby photos. Denise didn't flinch. She leaned over, adjusted the slide alignment by 0.05 inches and muttered, "It's spelled the way it deserves to be remembered." He looked at her like she'd recited Shakespeare in Morse code. That was Monday. By Thursday, she was gone. But let's rewind. I knew something was off when that same intern who once asked if QR codes were a crypto font got promoted to lead brand strategist and started scrubbing my entire investor deck without a word. No heads up. Just the rhythmic clatter of his MacBook like he was trying to detonate professionalism with papyrus font. Welcome to Norhaven Dynamics, where vision boards mean more than vision. And me, I'm Denise Clark. Or was, until I quietly changed my footer back to D. Halberd and waited for anyone to notice. I'd spent 9 years building this brand from a dusty Midwestern dev shop into a coastal tech darling that once got mistaken for a biotech firm on Bloomberg. I created every slogan, picked every shade on the logo based on the green tinge under my eyes from a week of missed sleep during launch month. I was Norhaven. So imagine my surprise when I get called into a transition chat and they hit me with the corporate sandwich. We're evolving the brand on top. Your position is being sunsetted in the middle, and you'll always be part of our story smeared on the bottom, like expired mayo, right? Like chalk outlines are part of the neighborhood watch. Pause real quick. 97% of you watch these stories without subscribing. That's like crashing someone's BBQ, eating their ribs, and dipping without saying thanks. Click that button. It keeps the lights on and the tea hot. Now back to my scheduled erasure. The thing is, I wasn't even mad. Not really. Hard to be mad when you wrote the exit door and hid the key under the rug. That same morning before HR summoned me, like I dinged their Tesla, I reread Clause 14.7 Section E of a contract I authored 4 years ago. It clearly states all brand IP created via external consultancy remains owned by the originating party listed in Exhibit A9. And, yep, that was me. That consultant, Denise Halberd. The clause was a phantom. It floated untouched through quarterly audits, reorg charts, even outside council reviews, because nobody questions the 48-year-old woman running the brand audits in slacks and flats. They should've. Really should've. So when Marshall, the newly anointed creative visionary, yes, the same guy who once pitched a fragrance line based on blockchain, told me, "We own everything you built," I smiled like I'd just seen a raccoon open a childproof container. "Of course you do," I said, wishing you and your buzzwords the best. I stood up, didn't even collect my mug, walked 3 blocks down to a greasy diner that smelled like burnt toast, and mercy opened my laptop and typed 4 words to a very expensive, very caffeinated lawyer. Activate Section E, rights. Because I may have signed off as Denise Clark, but D. Halberd. She never stopped tracking version history. The first time I heard the term Zoomer Sparkle strategy, I was knee-deep in a brand audit for Norhaven's flagship product, watching Marshall massacre our clean UX into an Instagram hallucination. He was turning my Monet into clip art. The email came in at 5:58 a.m., subject line, fresh vibes incoming. That emoji combo should have triggered a cease and desist. The attached deck buzzwords on buzzwords, synergy stacking, relevance indexing, a literal slide titled Emotional QR Codes, and stamped dead center in Comic Sans yes. Comic Sans was the new org chart. Marshall Gray, interim chief of brand futures. Interim, my ass. Within 72 hours, he'd launched brand vibe circles, which were just stand-ups with beanbag chairs and thrifted vests. One poor intern brought a turtle. And me, I wasn't even CC'd. No invite, no consult. Not even a courtesy Slack ping. I found out from Sherry in accounts, who forwarded the memo with a dancing hot dog gif. Understand this, I built Norhaven's brand while flying coach and eating granola bars in airport lounges. I ran onboarding decks between chemo appointments for my mom. That brand was mine. And now I was being erased. Quietly, strategically. Like a shelf being cleared before the estate sale. So I pinged Robert, our VP of Ops, during a Zoom call. He glanced sideways and said, We're just refreshing our visual DNA for the next generation. Think less legacy, more liquid cool. That's what Marshall said, flashing a grin like he'd just explained crypto to a cat. Legacy? I asked. You mean the brand equity that carried us from seed round to IPO? He shrugged. It's not personal, but here's the thing. It was. It always was. They just needed it not to be, because admitting they were swapping experience for eyeliner and irony would have made investors sweat through their cashmere. Still, I played along, showed up to vision alignment workshops, sipped $8 ginger kombucha, while Marshall said things like, "Let's unlearn everything we ever knew about design." I watched him toss out a decade of brand language because he read a newsletter about Helvetica-induced fatigue. And I smiled. But at night, I started copying everything, vendor logs, invoice trails, even my original drafts from the rainy night I named Norhaven Pulse on a diner receipt, while my ex chain-smoked menthols and called branding theater. I found the first investor pitch video, too. My voice cracked as I said, "This isn't just aesthetics. It's identity stewardship." They assumed I'd disappear, that I'd collect a canvas tote and fade into LinkedIn limbo. But slide by slide, they tried to erase me. Clause by clause, I started reclaiming every piece. That morning, I was summoned again. HR's rep wore a sweatshirt that read, "Monday's child is full of grace in glitter vinyl." It was Thursday. "Thanks for meeting on short notice," she said, voice hovering between HR script and scented candle commercial. Robert, now RVP of Ops West and Culture Liaison, sat beside her like a backup dancer in a corporate exorcism. I folded my hands. No pen, no pad, just watching. "We're excited to share some directional pivots," Grace Sweater chirped, clicking a deck titled People Strategy 2025 Evolving Forward. Lord help us. You know it's terminal when your exit is branded like a TED Talk. She droned about flattening structure, onboarding velocity, and my personal favorite role sunsetting, like I was a lamp or a garage sale futon. "We recognize your impact," Robert said, nodding solemnly, like I was a lost parakeet. "And don't worry," he added, "you'll be prominently featured in the new culture book." Culture book. Right next to the page on snack fridge etiquette. That glossy packet of recycled optimism we handed new hires. Yeah, I wrote half of it. Photos of employees fake laughing at whiteboards. Taglines like empathy scales. Now they wanted to wedge me in there like a legacy Polaroid. A tidy little thank you next to a stock image of Marshall doing expressive movement in front of the new logo. I said nothing. That was their first mistake. Marshall wandered in 20 minutes late like a clearance bin rock star. White sneakers, vintage tea with a howling wolf hugging an avocado, sipping turmeric matcha like it had IPO forecasts in the foam. He smirked. "Bittersweet, huh?" he said, dropping into the chair across from me. "But hey, you built this place. That's legacy." He leaned in, elbows on the table. "Just remember, Norhaven owns everything you built." That's when something in my chest clicked. Not broke, clicked. Like a switch. I stood, smoothed my blazer, slid my notepad into my bag, blank. No notes needed. I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. "That's the thing about legacy, Marshall. You don't own it. You rent the glow." He blinked. Maybe it was the metaphor. Maybe it was the calm. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just left. Didn't go back to my desk. Didn't pack a thing. Left the succulents, the French press, even my mug that read, "Your brand sucks in Comic Sans." Walked right past reception. Past the lobby where they once gave me a 5-year plaque and a gluten-free cookie shaped like the company logo. Outside, I pulled out a phone I hadn't used in months. One number. A voice answered. Steady. Familiar. "Is this a go?" I watched a pigeon wrestle a sandwich from a toddler. "Begin phase 2, I said. No fluff, no preamble. Because 2 years ago, right after they left me, off my first exec retreat, I started preparing. Rewrote vendor contracts, reassigned IP, hid clauses like Easter eggs in legal mulch thick enough to choke a subpoena. They wanted a smooth offboarding. They were getting a silent collapse. The next Monday, I walked in like nothing happened. Brought donuts, cinnamon twists for DevOps, and sprinkles for legal, the dry, gluten-free ones for UX because some habits die slower than brands. They thanked me, said it was so cool I was being such a team player. No one asked why I was back at my desk so soon. No one noticed I wasn't CCing my Norhaven email anymore, because I wasn't in the system. I was documenting it. First, stop the server archive. Shockingly, my credentials still worked. Marshall, in his infinite wisdom, hadn't updated vacation access logs. Rookie move. I downloaded every single version of every branding brief, wireframe, visual mock-up, vendor contract, and invoice chain. Every tagline I'd ever coined, right down to the one I scribbled on a cocktail napkin during a layover in Boise. Encrypted, mirrored, secured. If you believe in quiet power, earned wins and stories that don't end with a door slammed, but with a legacy, claimed hit, that subscribe button. The next chapter's already in motion, and I'd love to have you there when it lands. Then I moved to the physical stuff. Old notebooks, USPS receipts, my sketchpad from the original logo sprint. I even grabbed the pitch reel from 2018, back when I still believed brand family meant something, and the thick navy blue binder labeled Norhaven Identity Bible, before it all got replaced by pastel emojis and vibe audits. Then, quietly, I turned in my badge. Early. Dropped it off with Shirley at reception, who blinked at me through smeared mascara. "All ready?" she asked. "They sunset me, remember?" She nodded like I'd told her my cat had died twice. Meanwhile, upstairs the chaos bloomed. Product posted an internal memo, 3 clashing versions of the new logo, none matching the homepage. Marketing begged for tone guidance, got a Notion page with a 6-frame GIF of Marshall doing finger guns, labeled Brand Energy Flow. By Friday, finance flagged the rebrand spend. Overdrawn, unapproved, dotted with consultants whose bios included aura alignment and vibe synthesis. Legal was still waiting for IP clearance on the tagline, Pulse the Future, which ironically, I wrote. More ironically, I still owned it. Marshall called me Monday, Denise. "Hey," he chirped casual like a bad first date. "Big live stream next week. The board's asking for a legacy angle." You know nostalgia meets future forward. I imagined him typing how to grovel professionally into ChatGPT. I paused. "Sure," I said. "I'd be happy to consult." He exhaled so loudly, I almost laughed. "Awesome. Shoot me your contact. I'll loop you in." That afternoon, he got my reply. D. Halberd. Yes, principal consultant, WAS. Halberd brand works. Unlaunched, but beautifully letterheaded. The moment I hit send, something clicked inside me like a joint snapping back into place. My maiden name hadn't touched Norhaven's systems in over a decade, but there it was, again floating through their mail servers like a ghost they forgot was still on the lease. That night, I opened a bottle of red, logged into the Trademark dashboard, and hit refresh. Status approved. Active. Filed under Halberd, the name, the tagline, the visual identity. All mine, all official, all waiting. The auditorium reeked of high-end leather and pre-launch panic. Spotlights blinked to life as Norhaven's exec team paraded on stage, trying to look spontaneous despite weeks of rehearsal. Even the espresso cups had hashtags. Marshall strutted out like he just invented marketing, not Frankensteined it. "Welcome to the future," he announced, voice soaked in forced humility and bergamot. "Today, we evolve Norhaven." Scattered applause. A few VPs. Some interns paid an exposure. And a sea of strategic partners clapping like they were at a high-end divorce mediation. I sat 4th row dead center. My name badge read, Consultant Guest. To my right, a quiet man in a charcoal suit. No Norhaven swag, no espresso, just a silver briefcase and a folder stamped USPTO. No one noticed him. They should have. Marshall advanced the slide. A giant pulse icon bloomed on the screen, thumping in time with a royalty-free synth beat. Then the new logo appeared, softer font muted. Palette, all lowercase. The word mark read, Norhaven Pulse, DTM. Marshall beamed. This, he said, gesturing vaguely to the crowd, is what she started, no name, of course, and what we perfected. I didn't blink. Neither did my attorney. Flashback 2 years earlier. Norhaven had just wrapped a clarity retreat in Sedona. I wasn't invited to the final fireside strategy circle. First time in 13 years. They blamed bandwidth. So that night, in a dusty rental casita with bad Wi-Fi and a decent Pinot, I opened the USPTO portal, registered a Shell LLC under D. Halberd, filed for Norhaven Pulse across 3 verticals, branding digital assets and software, secured the domain, grabbed the socials, retained a third-party legal team, paid in Bitcoin for silence, and then I waited. I wrapped everything in NDAs thick enough to insulate a data center. Why? Because even back then, I knew they'd try to erase me. I just wanted to make damn sure they'd need my permission first. Back to present. Marshall was still rambling. You'll see fresh brand visuals across all Norhaven platforms starting today, he declared. Pulse isn't just a word, it's our heartbeat, our signal, our soul. I leaned slightly to my right. My attorney didn't move, just whispered, "On your word." I gave the smallest nod. Now, I said, quiet, cold. Somewhere backstage, an intern watching the live stream froze as the main screen glitched. Then flickered. Then cut. A video began playing. No one cued it. No one knew where it came from. On screen, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office portal. A timestamp. A filing number. Then a highlighted entry, owner D. Halberd. Filed 2 years ago. Status active. Live. Enforceable. Gasps. Nervous laughter. Murmurs. The chat, once filled with emojis and let's go, turned fast. Wait, is this part of the launch? Who is that? Did they just leak their own trademark? Marshall stood frozen. A visible patch of sweat darkened the collar of his thrifted blazer. The loop played again, and again. Then black screen. No logo. Just one word. Unlicensed. My attorney closed the folder calmly. A camera panned to the audience. I adjusted my hair, crossed my leg, and smiled. Cool. Silent. Like watching a train derail in slow motion behind soundproof glass. They thought this was their coronation. But really, they'd been invited to my funeral rehearsal. Only I wasn't the one in the casket. The moment Norhaven, Pulse, TM, appeared on screen, Marshall had looked like he'd cured branding with his bare hands. Behind him, animations danced, swooping logos, stock footage of interns high-fiving synth beats, begging for applause. The words, "Feel the pulse," glowed behind him like revelation. I said nothing. Arms folded, expression unreadable. Inside, though my heart wasn't racing. It was slowing, like my body already knew. The war was over. Marshall grinned at the camera. What you're witnessing today is the future of Norhaven, our new heartbeat, our new pulse. He paused for applause. It didn't land. My attorney leaned forward slightly, brushing his fingers along the edge of his briefcase. Now, I didn't blink. Now. That's when the screen stuttered. The logo hiccuped mid-loop. Then blackout. The crowd murmured. Probably assumed someone backstage spilled La Croix on the HDMI hub. But no one moved. Then came the cursor. White, deliberate, clicking through a desktop that very clearly wasn't part of the show deck. A browser opened. Slow load, intentional. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office homepage. Then a voice robotic calm echoed through the sound system. Trademark registration number 91847233. Owner of record D. Halberd. Filing date April 17th, 2023. Classification software branding, digital assets. Status active, live, enforceable. Then a second voice. Familiar. Marshall's. Clip from an old internal video. We own everything she built. The screen flickered. A correction appeared. You leased it. You defaulted. Gasps. Then scattered laughter. One board camera caught the VP of Finance dragging her hand across her forehead. Then the Norhaven Pulse logo reappeared, except this time a crimson stamp sliced across it diagonally. Unlicensed use, pending litigation, and then true silence. Not a tech error. corporate silence. That quiet moment where everyone's face is frozen, but their inner monologue is screaming. The live stream chat combusted. Wait, is this a bit? She owns the IP, bro's gonna need a lawyer and a therapist. Marshall didn't move, mouth open, blinking like a glitchy Sims character. I could see the sweat bleeding through his vintage design is resistance tee. He turned backstage. No one came. He turned back. Still nothing. Finally, he spotted me. Our eyes locked. He opened his mouth. I raised one finger and shook my head. His color drained. Not just embarrassment comprehension. The legal implications. The investor fallout. The valuation collapse. This wasn't a prank. This was a digital affidavit. Every pixel behind him evidence. I leaned toward my attorney. Send the cease and desist package. Include the licensing fee schedule. On it, he said, already opening his laptop. We stood. Behind us, the screen flickered again. Marshall flickered one final time on the projection screen, then vanished. A white line appeared against black. Next time, pay your invoice. Phones rang before I reached the back of the auditorium. One board member practically hip-checked a junior exec trying to get better signal. Someone from investor relations barked, "Get Elena on the line now," while Elena, whoever she was probably choking on her almond milk latte 3 time zones away. Marshall stood frozen center stage, gaping at the blank screen like it had turned on him. His polished brand debut months of pitch deck poetry and monologues about aesthetic flow, all incinerated in under 4 minutes by one trademark filing and a voiceover that sounded like it came from a fax machine with a grudge. By the time the fire alarm stopped chirping, yes, someone had actually pulled it. Norhaven's legal team was already behind the curtain, moving like caffeinated squirrels, flipping contracts, trying to reverse engineer a reality that had already collapsed. They knew. They just didn't want to say it yet. And me? I didn't rush. I didn't even speed up. My attorney and I walked with calm, deliberate cadence, each step a signature at the bottom of a chapter. We neared the corridor exit when Marshall finally moved. He stormed down the side stairs and cut us off. His eyes were wild, not rage, more like someone who just watched the last lifeboat leave. "You tricked us," he hissed, voice tight. I tilted my head. Trust the pivot, one of his slogans, nearly escaped my lips. But cleverness. That part was done. "No," I said evenly. "You assumed ownership. I ensured proof." He looked like he might scream or sob or both, but he didn't. He just stood there, fists clenched, caught in the wreckage of a story no longer about him. My attorney cleared his throat gently. "We'll follow up with licensing terms. Let us know if you prefer pre-litigation resolution." Marshall said nothing. His mouth opened, then closed. I stepped past him and whispered just loud enough to land. "Next time, build your own. Outside sunlight. Clean. Bright." Birds chirped like nothing had happened. It had. Inside that building, a company was unraveling. Outside, I was already writing the new story. No grand speech. No slow-motion vengeance montage. Just the quiet, precise rhythm of power returning to its rightful owner. By Monday morning, Norhaven's homepage was a ghost town. The new logo scrubbed. In its place, a beige placeholder reading, "We're working on something exciting." Except no one was excited. Especially not the account reps getting lit up by clients wanting to know who actually owned the brand they just signed co-marketing deals with. Legal pushed out a clarifying update. It was meant to calm nerves. Instead, it read like a panic attack in Times New Roman Norhaven. Dynamics is reviewing certain aspects of its recent brand evolution in light of new documentation. Translation. We stepped in it. Deep. The next domino fell before noon. 2. Fortune 100 clients paused. All paid media citing IP instability. One even asked if they needed to pull printed assets to avoid getting caught in litigation shrapnel. By Tuesday, the board placed Marshall on administrative leave, pending internal review. Translation, don't come back unless you've got a miracle, or hostage leverage. No farewell memo, no Slack emoji wave. Just gone. Poof. Like a forgotten blog redesign from 2009. And me, I was on my third cup of coffee, scrolling Zillow for lake houses I'd never buy, watching it all from my kitchen island. Then the email hit. Subject: Re-strategic consultation, immediate engagement body. Hi, Denise. The board would like to invite you to rejoin Norhaven in a consulting capacity to help stabilize brand communications. This would be a short-term role, generously compensated with full executive support. Please advise on availability for a kickoff call this week. I stared at it for a solid minute, then typed 2 words: I'm booked. Send. Not smug, just clean. They weren't calling because of respect or reflection. They called because the blueprint was gone, and I was the one who drew the map. But I wasn't interested in being their flashlight anymore. I was the damn sun. That afternoon, we sent the licensing terms. A formal agreement to rent the Norhaven Pulse, TM name and visual assets, 18 months, non-transferable, renewable by mutual consent only. The price, 6 times their rebrand budget. Marshall's salary, covered in 1 quarter. They accepted within 48 hours. No counter, no questions. Just one exhausted legal email with an attachment titled Final, signed.pdf. Control wasn't something I had to demand. They handed it over with both hands, hoping I'd say yes. And I did. Not for the money, but for the quiet reminder, ownership isn't declared. It's demonstrated. With paper trails, with timestamps, with silence. Closure didn't slam a door. It simply placed a key in my hand to a building someone else now had to rent. The video hit LinkedIn at 9:04 a.m., Thursday. No countdown, no teaser trailer, just a clean serif title card, soft piano playing. Halberd brand works? Then the footage, me hair pulled back, jacket sharp standing in sunlit glass, speaking to the lens. For years, I built brand stories from the shadows. Now I build them under my own name. Halberd Brand Works isn't a rebellion. It's a return to clarity, to ownership, to work that doesn't perform sincerity. It embodies it. We're not here to vibe. We're here to endure. 12 seconds later, the comments began. We've been waiting for this. Forwarded this. To our CMO, told her to run, not walk. Funny how you can feel trust in a voice. Within an hour, my calendar was booked. By noon, 3 of Norhaven's largest B2B partners had requested transition calls. One of them once sat on Norhaven's advisory board. Another used to have Marshall on speed dial. Used to. The silence inside Norhaven wasn't calm. It was hollow. That afternoon, a rushed all-hands was called. They passed out fizzy water and snack bars like therapy. Robert stood stiffly at center stage, flanked by the temporary branding team who looked like they hadn't slept since Monday. He cleared his throat. We want to acknowledge the confusion around our brand transition and recent announcements from former team members now operating independently. No claps, not at the beginning, not at the end. Not even when he tried to joke, every good story has a plot twist. One lone voice, someone from accounting, asked, "Does our mission still include creative stewardship?" Robert mumbled something about continued refinement. Behind him, the screen flickered, then held. The original Norhaven logo, hand-sketched by Denise on a rainy Sunday, back when her pressed blazer caught fire on the stove and she pitched anyway. It hovered there. Not as strategy, but as memory. Down the hall, Marshall's old office sat silent. A single sticky note on the door in fading Sharpie vacant. No plaque, no title. Just resignation on paper. Across town, a different door opened. Etched in frosted glass, Halberd Brand Works. Inside, Denise stepped through folders in one hand, espresso in the other. The room was smaller than her last corner office, but cleaner, brighter, more real. No beanbags, no neon slogans, no desperate aesthetic. Her team was already there. Sharp, curious, loyal. She gave a slight nod. A smile, then turned to the window. The city once cold steel and closed rooms looked different now. Not like a trap, but like possibility. She walked to her desk, adjusted a small photo frame, a candid from the early Norhaven days, before the corporate theater, before the politics, before the theft. Back when branding meant belief, not burn rate. She sat down, shoulders light, smile earned, and in the quiet that followed her voice surfaced in her own head. Clear, final. You can't steal what was never yours. You just leased it. At my rate. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, unless you're my old boss. In which case, good luck. Revenge of the French press strikes again. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for witnessing, and maybe even for seeing a bit of yourself in this story. I didn't share all this for sympathy. I shared it because I know what it feels like to give everything to a place, only to be erased in return. I know how quietly betrayal can arrive, dressed like a restructuring memo. And I know the strength it takes not to burn it all down in rage, but to walk out calmly with proof in your hand and your name protected on the paperwork. If Denise Halbert's story hit a nerve, say so in the comments. Don't just tell me you watched, tell me where it landed for you. Maybe it reminded you of a time someone took credit for your work. Maybe you're still waiting for someone to notice your value. Either way, I want to hear it. Support isn't just a like or a share. It's telling the algorithm and the world that people like us, builders, thinkers, quiet professionals, deserve to be seen. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Not for the channel, but for the stories we've all lived and never told out loud. And if there's one piece of advice I'd leave behind, it's this: protect your name, your work, and your worth before anyone else decides they can define them for you. Ownership isn't loud. It's legal. And it's yours if you've done the work to claim it. Keep your receipts. Keep your integrity. And when the time comes, don't ask for permission. Show them the clause they forgot to read.